So that was my rendition of the bass line from Start. Bruce Foxton, I think, is the name of the bass player from The Jam who played that, and obviously it's based on Paul McCartney's bass line from Taxman. Always loved that song. Alright, you 13,000 Awakening Thrill Seekers, how you doing? This is Brad, and I got some questions, and as you know, since before your sun burned hot in space and before your race was born, I've awaited a question. And the following questions are several that I put together, so I'm just going to read them all out to you, so here we go. Brad, if all we are searching for is truth, how will we recognize it? How do we? And if we do, how will we even know it is the truth, in quotes? Ultimately, how can it be claimed that it even exists if Buddhists have been searching for it for centuries, but it's nowhere to be found? It's like the question of God's existence. I have not seen God, but I know He exists. I guess he's just speaking on, I don't think he's saying that himself, but anyway. Now we're in the realm of belief. Am I making sense? And another question goes like this. If I'm misguided about this, please correct me. Buddhism seems to stress the importance of getting to a point where we are able to have direct experience, quotes, of whatever is occurring in the moment before thinking mind, in quotes, before our preconceived ideas, biases, filters, etc. kick in. My query is this. If we're clouded by our erroneous perceptions, don't they become our immediate default interpretation of that present moment? How do we work with that and self-correct? Maybe I'm not understanding something basic and obvious. Hope you can offer some clarification and insight. Love this Dogen quote. If you want to see things just as they are, then you yourself must practice just as you are. And the final one. I've only been studying Zen and practicing Zazen for several years. Recently I'm struggling with the following, probably because of the state of the world right now. Part of what Buddhism addresses is the psychological, ethical, moral aspects of life. Great, but wanting to learn to see things as they truly are, reality in quotes, what's so great about that? Maybe there's a reason we're hardwired for delusional thinking. So these questions are phrased as if reality was an object which we could stand apart from and recognize. So I brought some objects out here, and I'll talk about how we recognize an object. I got this yesterday at the record store downtown here in this town I moved to, Badfinger, No Dice. This, when I was in high school, was one of my favorite albums. When I was in high school, I was basically listening to mostly music that was done 10 years before I was in high school. So this came out in 1971, long before I ever got to high school. And this is in really pristine shape. I mean, I don't know if you can perceive this on the video, but this is in great condition. Now, I was looking at this and the price was pretty low. So I'm looking at this at the store going, wow, this is in great shape. Is this a reissue? If this survived this long since 1971 in this great a shape, this is a rare find. So I'm looking all over the place on this. I'm not a big record collector, but I'm enough of a record collector to kind of know what to look for. And in most cases, when an album is reissued, for an older album, like here's another one I used to listen to a lot when I was in high school, Fripp and Eno, No Pussyfooting. But I know this is a reissue. This originally came out in 73, long before I was in high school. But if you look on the back, for one thing, I think the original was on Island Records, and now it's on Opal with the DGM mark. That's Robert Fripp's own record label mark. And then it's got a 2014 copyright. So obviously this is a reissue. I can tell it's a reissue because it's got a different record label and a different copyright notice, and that's often the way you can tell these reissues. Sometimes they'll have like a a barcode on the back, which they didn't have in the 70s. This one's got nothing. This even has the Apple Records, an ABCO managed company. Beatle nerds will know about that. ABCO was the company run by Alan Klein, who was the notorious business manager that George, John, and Paul picked to manage the Beatles at the end of the Beatles' career. And that's what ended the Beatles' career, basically. Not Yoko Ono, it was more Alan Klein. But because Paul said Alan Klein is a crook, and the other three didn't believe him, and then Paul had to sue him and all this stuff. Turned out Paul was right. Alan Klein was a crook. So if this is a reissue, why would they put Abco on there? So I don't know if this is a reissue or not. Maybe some record collector fanatic can tell me. So the point is, these questions about truth or reality are framed like an object who we could look at and like I would say reality, you can tell it's reality because it has a blue watermark that says trademark in 2022 Reality Incorporated or God, but reality doesn't have anything like that. Or what about the matter of truth? Like recently it's been all over the news that the president has announced the formation of the Disinformation Governance Board, DGB, which sounds a little bit like KGB, and a lot of people are calling it the Ministry of Truth, and they're telling us, okay, the government is going to tell us, the U.S. government is going to tell us what's true and what's not true. And a lot of people are going, the U.S. government is going to see, even Ziggy sees the fault in that. You know, the U.S. government is going to tell us what's true and what's not true. I don't know about that. So, are you going to accept a claim about reality from an authority figure like a guru or a Zen master or me? You're gonna accept my definition of truth? Well, I doubt that the questioners are asking for are planning to just blindly accept my definition of truth, but maybe they want to hear it anyway, and I'll tell you in a minute. But this kind of points out the problem with accepting an authority for definition of truth, because you don't know if that authority is actually telling the truth. See, Ziggy questions that. But you know, an authority figure might not have it in his best interest to tell you the truth. So, you know, what do you do about that? So the problem with recognizing reality is you can't go by authority, and there's no sort of perceivable hallmark or watermark, as I said in my joking beginning, to let you know what the truth is. What my teacher, Gudo Nishijima Roshi, used to say is that the truth or reality is not an object of perception or conception. So you can't perceive reality. So this questioner who's asking about, let me see what the question was. If we're clouded by our erroneous perceptions, don't they become our immediate default interpretation of the present moment? And how do we work to self-correct? Well, the deal is your perceptions are faulty. All of our perceptions are faulty. What we are is a faulty mechanism for interpreting what is true. That is the problem. And that is what we work with in Zazen. So if reality is beyond our perception and beyond our conception, beyond anything we can explain about it, what do? Well, there are other ways of knowing, and what Nishijima Roshi used to call the other way of knowing, the main other way of knowing, was intuition. And of course, all words are kind of problematic, and we don't know exactly how the definition of intuition... Sorry, Ziggy's telling us about intuition. Can you see him back there? There he is. Anyway, definitions are always problematic, but intuition kind of, to me, indicates a way of knowing that isn't perception and isn't thought. And we're trying to find that way of knowing that isn't perception and is not thought. And that is elusive, and that's one of the reasons it can't be communicated. You can't take intuition and turn it into a set of sentences that somebody else is going to understand. Well, maybe somebody else will understand. There are ways of communicating these things, and that's why in the Zen system, both teacher and student are kind of looking towards the same thing. So the idea is not that the teacher is the authority who's going to tell you about reality. It's that the teacher is looking to the reality, to the intuitive perception of reality that is beyond conception and beyond perception, and so is the student. And if both of them are looking at it together, they can have a kind of communication together. But this is a very rare thing and very difficult to establish, and you know, you gotta really work at it. Like Ziggy is working. Ziggy's really barky. But all of this reminded me of a quote that comes up in this book, To You, by Kodo Sawaki, which has got a little blurb by good old me on the back of it. And the quotation, which I just came across a couple of days ago, goes like this. The whole world believes the practice of the Buddha way is about cutting off your illusions one by one, like dimming a lamp until all of a sudden it goes out. But Mahayana practice, Zen practices among the Mahayana schools, is vowing and working towards saving suffering beings before saving yourself. That's the Bodhisattva vow. It's necessary to deliberately leave the illusions as they are in order to be of use to living beings. This means we've got to be completely human. Being monotonously perfect isn't good for anyone. So, it's not that we are trying to find this state of perfection and kind of escape into it. I think some philosophies are like that, and this is perhaps the little problem I have with the Advaita Vedanta system, because it seems to be about trying to escape into perfection and kind of live there. Now, I'm not saying everybody was, and certainly guys like Nisargadatta Maharaj were not doing that, and Ramana Maharshi was not doing that, but the philosophy overall seems more to me, and you can argue with me in the comments if you want, because I'm interested in hearing from Advaita Vedanta people. But the practice seems to me to be often aimed at escaping into perfection. Zen practice is not about that. Zen practice is about being useful to suffering beings, to the rest of us, to being completely human and to remaining completely human. And that's the kind of interesting part, because we're aiming to see reality as it is, which is beyond the ability of a human being's perception or perceptual or conceptual systems. Our mind, our body can't do it, because we're kind of a mistake in a way. The whole thing is part of the illusion. Everything is part of the illusion. Even the thing that is seeking to get out of the illusion is also part of the illusion. That's the problem. But we're also seeking to remain in the human realm and be completely human while doing that, so we can be of help to others who are suffering. So that's it. And there's no great conclusion that this runs to. This is how it is, and this is what I'm telling you. So, if you want to contribute to me continuing to be able to tell you stuff like this, you can go to the URL that you are seeing on the screen below, which is hardcorezen.info/donate. That is hardcorezen.info/donate. There you will find links to my Patreon and PayPal accounts, and those are my main and usually only ways of making a living, so I appreciate your support. And now we got somebody trimming trees back, so I'm going to wrap it up here. But anyway, you don't have to pay if you don't want to pay, and thank you for watching, and this is offered for free, and we'll see you next time. Have a good time all the time. Hey Ziggy, are you enjoying your new place? You like it here? You like being able to sit in your old bed in your new place? I hope you like it here. Alright, we'll talk to you later. See you later, Ziggy.